What up, and welcome to another Malazan Book of the Fallen video. We're taking a little break from our Gardens of the Moon series just to get more people involved who aren't in the midst of a read-through on Gardens of the Moon. So today, we're talking about our top 10 favorite characters, although we're throwing in a lot of honorable mentions as well. So let's get into it. Okay, so I know I'm wading into controversial waters. If you go online and look at the wiki or the Reddit, which I've been trying to get more involved in as well, there's a huge gamut of people's favorite characters, and like everyone's list has responses like, what? You didn't include Talk, or you didn't include Fiddler, or this is totally subjective. This is just my list. They're not in any particular order. I'll just go through the 10 that I love the most and a little bit about why, and then we'll get into those honorable mentions. Before we get too far into it, though, I do want to invite you over to our Facebook group, which I'll flash up here on the screen. If you want to take some polls, share some memes, link to some artwork that you find. There's like tons of awesome Malazan art out there, chit chat in between videos, whatever. Join that group. I don't know if you're on Facebook. I know I'm old, but should be a lot of fun. First up, got to give it up for my boy, Janos Perrin. Such a cool character. He just has such an evolution, right? He starts out as this noble who kind of wants to prove that he can succeed in the military, idolizes people like the Bridge Burners, Whiskey Jack. He has like a super irreverent, like smart-ass personality. He doesn't take any crap from anybody. He's not intimidated necessarily by these big, like, legendary figures. Spoiler alert, obviously, for all of these, but carries through all the way to the end and is critical in events that culminate in the Chained God. But yeah, all the people that he's trash-talked, whether it's Claw or interacted with guards or earned the respect of Hounds of Shadow, defied gods, you name it, Janos is a straight-up G. One of the things that all the lists have in common is my number 2 pick, which is Talk the Younger. Talk is a straight-up G, but he's also just got so much heart, whether it's his friendship with Onos to Ulan, or just the journey that he goes through, the loss, the suffering, and just the perseverance. He's just a very tragic storyline, but one that has just, again, a lot of heart and meaning and very relatable. Got to give it up for his battle skills and just his kind of stick-to-itness and grit. Dude goes through a lot and is just a really fun character to follow. And then kind of in that same vein of just straight up warrior badasses who command respect and who you want to like and who are basically not in it for themselves. They're not really ego driven. They're honestly just trying to like live up to a code that they've set for themselves, and just a really good dude, Trull Senegar. Trull is another one with those super tragic storylines, right? Trull, you feel like at the end has finally like got what he actually deserves and has gone through hell and back. And finally like is at a place where you could actually see Trull being happy in life. And from when you see him kind of chained up and left for dead at the beginning all the way through, you know, becoming a warrior of shadow and falling in love and all of that stuff. Just, I mean, he is in a lot of different consequential events plot-wise, but just a super stand-up dude who, again, has that dignity, right? He's somebody who commands the respect. Trull is another one, and then just in terms of his straight-up, G'd-up fighting skills, he's a total badass. Okay, and then these next two are kind of in that vein of just people who you really respect and look up to, not ego-driven, but really from a command standpoint. They're the types of dudes who you want in charge. So number 4, got to give it up for my boy, Whiskey Jack. Just a straight up good dude, right? When he's left for dead, demoted down and busted down from like the commander of the overall military all the way down to just like a squad sergeant. He sticks with it and does right by his squad. Also, when the Empire's like falling apart, right? And people are squabbling over the leavings, and he's got his eye on the bigger prize of like Coral and doing what's right in the world. Again, not ego driven. And so for me, he's just a dude who really cares about his men and wants to do right thing and just to be an overall good person. He's like the type of leader that I think we all aspire to be at our jobs or in the military or whatever. Just somebody that you can believe in, that you can trust, that you can respect and give everything to, knowing that he's going to be doing the same on his end from a leadership standpoint. And that's kind of true of my number 5 as well, right? Dujek OneArm doesn't want any of the trappings of Empire to be the next emperor. He wants to do right by the 2nd Army, the 5th Army, the 6th Army, whatever you want to call it, the host, and by the bridge burners, ultimately. That's why he lets them walk and do their own thing. Just a really good dude. It's not really that exciting to follow the Dujek chapters, right? He's not this big dynamic personality, but just a really good person that you want to like and respect and you want to see everything work out well for. Next up on my list, and again, these aren't in any particular order, is Fiddler. Fiddler is just such a cool dude and probably the guy that I relate to most in the series, but he is just super smart. He's got the kind of best interests of his people at heart. He's like a lover, you know, at the end of the day, and the people that he's with really mean something to him. I think he's also kind of a tragic character, you know. You see all the other kind of bridge burners go off and do their own thing. He re-enlists and goes out to 7 cities and kind of jumps back in and does the whole thing again. Also super tragic, right? When Hedge dies, that really crushes Fiddler, even to the point where when Hedge comes back, he can't like fully accept him because he's like already gone through the emotional process of saying goodbye to Hedge and really just wants his life to be, you know, worth something. He's like best sapper that's ever lived and saboteur and all that stuff, and just a really good guy. He's just out there to make it happen and use his skills. He's also like an adept, which is crazy. He's not really like a mage because he doesn't have any powers, but when you see him interact with big mages, they're like, whoa, dude, this guy's like a rare talent for this stuff. And there's definitely that kind of mystical tie-in with Fiddler. He keeps it real with his superiors. He's not afraid to like tell it how he sees it. He pretty much turns everything around for Tavor after the Bonehunters incident and all that stuff, where they come out of Yucatan, and just so many different, you know, consequential, even when you see his own like internal dialogue, he's just he's that character again that I like most closely relate to. Like if I was in the Malazan world, I would probably be like a Fiddler type character, sucks at fighting but can kind of use whatever skills he does have to try and get along. But just a cool dude, values friendship. I think Fiddler should be on everybody's list. Number 7 and number 8 are kind of like peas in a pod. They bring the kind of magery, the comic relief. So number 7 is Croak. He definitely is a cool character. A lot of people don't know what to make of Croak, but he is like this kind of, he reminds me a lot of, honestly, like Amonis or Shadow Throne, because he kind of seems aloof and you know, just kind of this big fat dude who's always like talking BS and shoving food in his mouth or whatever. But he does seem to have like this level of like prescience and to understand what's coming down the pike and be able to kind of maneuver chess pieces around the board in a very like kind of behind the scenes way that actually ends up being, again, of huge consequence, and he's able to kind of pull those strings. And what's really cool about Croak is that he actually does seem to be doing it for the greater good. He, you know, kind of does it under the guise of, you know, looking out for number 1 and making sure his like food supplies are good and that where he lives is an area of peace and not going through turmoil and strife. But it really is for the greater good. And I think by the end of the series, you really see that he is gunning for bigger things, not personally, but just in terms of the overall dynamic flow of the society through the rest of the ages and into this new age. He also talks crap to everyone, confounds everyone, like Kaladin Brood gets to the point where he smashes them with that huge hammer. Nothing happens, and, you know, everybody is, like, baffled by him, but also, like, seems like he really has this kind of deeper level of understanding and is able to manipulate events in a way that's going to be ultimately favorable for the world at large. Speaking of confounding people, he runs across the path, obviously, of my number 8, Iskar Pust. I don't know why. I just like this guy. He's like such a trash talker. He's crazy. He has this wife that's like made out of spiders, but then they're like, you know, obviously in some ways really compatible too. He's always like talking to himself and doesn't think other people can hear, and they're like, bro, we can hear everything you're saying, but he thinks he's like all funny, but actually a straight up G'd up mage too. Very consequential in terms of the plot at several different points in time, and just his chapters are always a crack up, and he's just a really funny dude. Okay, my number 9, and maybe this one's controversial or maybe it's not, you can let me know down in the comments below, but that is Tavor Parent. Now, I could see why she gets a bad rap, right? That when you first get introduced to Tavor, you're looking at it through Perrin's eyes, and it's still the kind of chip on his shoulder Janos from very early on in the books. He kind of like compliments her in an offhanded way, right? Like, oh, don't worry, I always knew the family was going to end up in good hands. And she doesn't really know whether to take it as like a compliment or whether he's being a smartass. I think secretly she like looks up to him and thinks he's a capable person and actually respects him. But she is just a straight up G. She has such a long game throughout the books. And, you know, the reason why she's doing it, it truly is like a selfless act that she's doing. And she takes a lot of shit for doing what she did, whether it's from, you know, the Empress and getting ejected like that, or just the trials of leading that whole army, you know, and doing pretty much the unthinkable of invading Lether and then ultimately, you know, releasing the chained god. I mean, come on. She's doing it all for the greater good, humongous sacrifice, and at every step of the way, she's like trying to do right by her army, even by her sister, right? And the whole tragedy with Malazan and everything like that. She was really trying, and you see that ultimately that really impacted her emotionally, even though she keeps everything buttoned up. But man, you talk about somebody who is selfless and going for the greater good. I think Tavor, easily one of the kind of best or goodest, or however you want to say that, characters in the whole series. She really puts herself out there and achieves kind of the impossible, and it's pretty awesome just to see her whole arc through the end. Okay, and then to round out my top 10 favorite characters, I'm going with Ithkovian. G'd up shield anvil, who in some ways for me, Ithkovian honestly like kind of represents the entire story in books about, you know, suffering. And if you go back and check out my earlier video, I'll post it up there. He really represents like the themes of pain and suffering and just kind of deeper emotional bonds with people, the kind of generosity, the goodness of heart. That guy, man, that's like a tear-jerking segment of the books, and one that I think is just a testament to the arc of that character. He was always like a really moral and good character, even in his kind of run as the shield anvil, but then once he kind of ascends to that next level, you just really see like kind of that's what humility is, and dignity, and just kind of, I mean, you talk about being able to think beyond yourself and go for the greater good. There is no bigger sacrifice or show of kind of generosity, or I wish I had the vocabulary even to explain it, just because you know, just the sheer immensity of what he does is pretty amazing. He definitely is right up there as one of my favorite characters, not just from an entertainment or plot standpoint, but just for what he stood for and what he did is something that really spoke to me. That pretty much rounds out my top 10, but I would be remiss if I didn't have at least an honorable mention section, because I'm like looking down at my list and there's still just so many good people in this book to follow who are hilarious. So number 1 on my honorable mentions, Tahol Bedict. However I know I'm butchering that name. Let me know how to pronounce it down in the comments. But just a hilarious dude, like a straight up genius. He's like this kind of really weird, kind of lovable weirdo who's next level intelligence is just super cool, and his dynamic with Bug and just kind of how he goes from like sleeping on the roof with busted out, you know, sheets and whatever else to like the richest and most powerful man almost in the world from a mortal standpoint, and just all the trials and tribulations and trash talking and back and forth that he has throughout the book with Bug and everybody else. He's just a hilarious, awesome character. Number 2 honorable mention is like a deeper, more gut-wrenching kind of gut punch character, but that is Diker, the Empire historian. Man, that guy has a really like savage, depressing arc where he's, just supposed to be the historian, but on the chain of dogs, he's like fighting side by side with those people, falling in love, losing everything, and then eventually links up with the Bridge Burners and Fisher Keltath and everything else. Just a good dude, a smart dude. He's kind of like this elder statesman in some ways that people like go to for advice or to bounce ideas off of. You get to see a lot of the events of Chain of Dogs in particular through Diker's eyes, and just again, just a really good person. I think that's maybe one of the things that links a lot of these people on my list of favorites and also honorable mentions, is just like people who you aspire to be like, just to have that dignity, whether you get the respect or not, but just to be worthy of that respect. And Diker is definitely in that category. Next up, Hellion, second woman in the group. I realize now that my list is like super man heavy, which is crazy just given how many badass chicks there are. But Hellion is my third on the honorable mention list. She's hilarious, super badass fighter. She like convinces that dude later on that she's a queen, right? Always trash talking, always complaining, but when the rubber meets the road, she steps up and makes it happen and is just like a super fun character to read. Gotta love me some Hellion. Next up on my list, and I didn't see this on a lot of other people's lists, and probably because he wasn't like of super huge consequence to the overall plot all the way through the 10 books, but is Gruntal, right? He's like this kind of reluctant hero. If you guys remember the movie with Dustin Hoffman, Andy Garcia, the hero, where the guy's like saves all those people, doesn't really want to. I kind of get that vibe from Gruntal as well. He tries to be this like big hard ass, right? Doesn't care about anything, but he's obviously like the M&M with the hard outside and then like the soft candy on the inside or whatever. A super big badass. Who doesn't like somebody who looks like a tiger and is all striped up? He's got a killer friendship with Stani Manakis, who are always like going back and forth and giving each other crap. I need to do a friendship, like best friendships video. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see a best friendships video, and let me know what your best friendships are in the series. But for me, Gruntal is a super fun character to read, and I love that friendship with him and Stani. Number 5 on my list of honorable mentions. Sometimes he was on like the number 1 for favorite characters, but Son of Darkness, Animander Rake. He starts out as this kind of mythological, legendary figure. As you go on, you learn that his like motivations are very like human in nature, right? It's about love and caring and getting back to, what you once had for your people and to give them the best life, and to obviously free Mother Dark and all of that stuff too. Just a super good dude who's playing like multiple millennia long chess games to achieve the ultimate goal, which ends up being like a greater good for his people and for humanity overall, and just a good leader. He's not out killing for the sake of it. He's not out there pumping up his own legend or ego, but just somebody who has his eye on the ultimate prize and is willing to sacrifice everything, including himself, to achieve that greater good. And so again, just one of those characters who hopefully we're all trying to aspire to be like, is just to care that much and to be that good. Next up, one of my favorite mages, even though it doesn't make my list of like top 10 favorite, but I love me some Bottle, right? Bottle can talk to animals. Some of the Bottle chapters, like when they're escaping from Yucatan and all the fire is happening, those are like some of the most like intense scenes. I remember like reading that, and just like when they're in the tunnel and people are screaming and he's using the rats to get out and stuff, but just a guy who really cares about his squad mate, people that he's fighting with, and funny. Has a lot of crazy stuff happen with the Eris All and all that stuff. Hooks up my boy Fiddler too, and gets the Eris All to try and remove some of Fiddler's suffering, of which he has a ton. But yeah, Bottle is just like a super good dude, crazy mage, super funny. He's part of a lot of the major events in the books, and so he definitely makes my honorable mention list. Number 7 on my honorable mentions, easily could have made it into the top 10, but that's Onos Tu'ulan. Tool, my boy. He is one of those rare characters, I think, who actually gets that happy ending in some ways. It's not totally happy, but, you see him at the beginning, and he's this kind of desiccated figure, escorting Adjunct Lorne to free the Jaga tyrant. He becomes friends with Tok the Younger. He partakes in Ithkovian's redemption. He gets to live a mortal life again. He earns some respect as a clan leader. He finds love through Hitan, and just has one of those really crazy long arcs where he actually goes, instead of starting as like a regular person and ascending to godhood, he almost starts as a god and ends up like as a mortal man. Just kind of regains a lot of that stuff that he lost. Plus, he's just a good dude, right? He commands respect. He tries to do the right thing. He gives killer advice to Adjunct Lorne, Talk the Younger, you name it. Just got a really cool story. So Tool, right up there on the honorable mentions list. He is a stud. Next up, man, the myth, the legend, Shadow Throne himself, Amonis, Emperor Kalenved. Dude is just a straight up G. I know that he seems like all aloof and crazy, and we don't know what his motivations are at first. As the books progress and then you go back and read Path to Ascendancy, it's not just dumb luck and flukes. Like, he is just really either very lucky, but I think honestly it's prescience and just kind of being able to think at a very high level and dismiss the stuff that doesn't matter, and pulling on the right levers at the right times to get the right outcomes that he wants, and talk about just executing a long game plan. Dude is a straight up G. Also just hilarious and funny, right? He's always like got these snickering comments, and he's talking trash to Dancer all the time, and he's kind of got no humility, but at the same time he's like screwed up a bunch of times and kind of just goes, and shrugs it off and doesn't like take everything to heart. Holds grudges like crazy, no doubt. Just in terms of his like genius, the ultimate motivations, what he's able to achieve, and just the personality wise, Kalenved, I like you. My ninth honorable mention is one that I didn't see a lot on many of the lists, but that is my boy Gensler. This is one of those great friendships, him and Stormy together, but again, just a good dude who wants to do what's right and takes care of the people. He doesn't have like this big agenda that they're out to do some crazy stuff necessarily. He's just like progressing through his life, and when choices are presented to him, he does the right thing and seems to have a code that he lives by. Great personality, good person. That's what I like. Okay, and then last but not least for my honorable mentions is the one and only Karsa Orlong. Karsa has a crazy journey from getting kidnapped by the children all the way through to, squaring off against Ikari. Fortunately, Karsa's the one who's still got a lot more story to tell. I don't know if you guys have read that prologue chapter from the Karsa Orlong trilogy that's up on Steven Erickson's website, but I am ready for that. That is going to be good. Super pumped, and it'll be interesting to see if he pulls off his whole overarching goal, which is in some ways similar to Shadow Thrones, right? They're going to obviously kind of have to cross paths again at some point, but Karsa starts off as this really cocky dude, but I think he gains a lot of perspective as he goes through all of his trials and travails. His friendship, quote unquote, with Samar Dev, again, is a killer one, and just their interactions and stuff, but hard not to like a giant who just is straight up undefeated, and just all the that he goes through, survives, comes out the other side like more hardened and ready to take on whatever, including taking down all the gods. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Karsa. So yeah, that is our list of the top 10 of my subjective, personal top 10 favorite characters in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and the novels of the Malazan world, too. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Who did I leave out? Who are those awesome characters that deserve their moment in the sun? There's so many. I could easily come back, and I probably will again do another next best set of characters, just because there's so many, and as I think of them, I'll jot them down on my little notepad, and then we can chat about them in the comments down below. So we'll go ahead and leave it there. I look forward to seeing what you put in the comments below. Make sure you join us over in that Facebook group. It's going to be a lot of fun just sharing with each other and chatting informally in between videos. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up so that the YouTube gods promote it and we get more Malazan readers or potential Malazan readers into the channel and get them pumped on the books. Click that subscribe and turn on notifications so that you never miss a video. And until then, happy reading.